Hi everyone. On November 9th, the Holy Orthodox Church celebrates the memory of Symeon Metaphrastes, or Symeon the Translator. Now he is a very important man in the history of the Orthodox Church because of his many writings and because of his almost superhuman effort at collecting the lives of many saints. Symeon was born in Constantinople to a wealthy and pious family, and in fact he spent much of his time not only in religious studies but in studies of philosophy also. He was someone who eventually became very, very well known for his ability in this area, studying rhetoric and many of the other things that were not only of longer significance, but also some of the eternal fads that seem to pop up in every generation. Now, Symeon was so well known, and because of his family connections, and because he was quite a wealthy man, he was appointed logothete, or a chancellor or magistrate of the empire. Some indicate that he was actually the chief chancellor of the empire, and was someone who was absolutely devoted to the emperor at the time, Leo the Wise. Now this was around the early to late 900s of the 10th century. Leo, of course, had such faith in Symeon that he actually instructed him to go and try and negotiate a peace with a number of Arabs who were at that time tormenting the nation of Crete. They were causing lots of bloodshed, lots of problems, and so Symeon went down on a ship to Crete, because apparently he was also a man who was knowledgeable about the things of battle, the things of war, and negotiated a wonderful truce with the Arabs so that they would stop their pillaging of Crete, and in fact agreed even to pay a tax to Emperor Leo. Well, Symeon wrote to Leo at this time, and he wanted to know that if he was successful, would Leo be willing to grant him an enormous favor? Leo said yes, because he thought so much of Symeon. Well, Symeon, after his success in Crete, went back to Constantinople, and there he presented Leo with the favor that he wanted. Now, Leo was anticipating perhaps an even higher position, perhaps money, perhaps gold, and he was all too willing to give him this. But instead, Symeon said, "I want to become a monk. That's all, nothing else." Leo was very distressed at this, because he loved and admired Symeon so very, very much, and in fact needed him for the governance of the great city of Constantinople. But at the same time, he was not going to go back on his word. So he said to Symeon, "My child, go in peace, and when you are there, intercede for my sins." Emperor Leo the Wise was called the Wise for many, many reasons. So Symeon went off and began his monastic career. His writing was very straightforward. In fact, there were some at the time who complained that his rhetoric was maybe a little bit below some of the great rhetoricians of the day. But in defense of him, he was not writing for himself or to exalt his own status as a philosopher, which he could have done because many were there, and many who attained a certain level of philosophical discourse would start to dress differently and to tout themselves and all these sorts of things. Symeon would never have any of that. He was someone who simply presented himself as he was, a very humble and pious man. However, because of his wealth and because of his love for the martyrs and ascetics of the church, he was able to commission a number of disciples to go out all through the empire as far as they could stretch and to collect lives of many, many saints, and in the process also try to verify as much of these lives as they could. Because unfortunately, in the hagiography of the Orthodox Church, there are many things that have crept in, that have become distorted, that are rather fanciful. One has to be circumspect and quite careful when reading some of the lives of the saints. And Saint Symeon was one of the people that was willing to take this challenge in order to present to the faithful lives that were not only accurate, but were truthful in the spiritual proclamations contained within them. And so, when all was said and done, there were probably some 250 new lives that he collected, and some have said as many as 800 that were revisited and completely gone over to ensure the accuracy of these existing stories. So St. Symeon has left us a phenomenally wonderful legacy in terms of the lives of the saints. When you see his name on it as being the one who translated or corrected a certain life of the saint, it can almost be like the good housekeeping seal of approval in terms of its authenticity, and we can have very great confidence in the things that he put down and the things that he collected. Symeon lived and reposed peacefully in the Lord, and in fact, upon his death, he was laid out on top of his tomb, and it is recorded that there was such a sweet-smelling fragrance that it would have gone on forever, except that after a few weeks, another corpse was put beside him that actually touched him, and at that point the fragrance stopped. But all revered him, all knew him, and the Orthodox Church to this very day owes a great deal of gratitude to the efforts that he made, not only in the lives of the saints, but in hymnography, another very important area, and as someone who is one of the most talented people in terms of the writings that have come down to us, and in terms of the theology that he was so ably able to vocalize in the texts that have come down to us. Let us all say a brief prayer of gratitude to Saint Symeon and ask for his intercession in the understanding of the many, sometimes complex lives of the saints that grace the Orthodox Church. Bye-bye.